Now, after the unsuccessful vote of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma last week, the DA suggested a dissolution of Parliament, a suggestion that has generally failed to garner the support, not only from opposition parties, but also from civil society. Nkosikhulile Nyembezi, the co-chairperson of the elections 2019 National Coordinating Forum, is joining us from our SABC parliamentary studios to tell us what this 2019 Elections Forum thinks about an early election and also the DA's latest move. Well, let's chat to Nkosi now. Thank you so much for joining us. Nkosi, of course, is the co-chairperson of the Elections National Coordinating Forum. Good to see you, Nkosi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What
do you make of the DA's next move and the strategy for the dissolution of Parliament?
Well, our concern is about creating a level political field that is conducive to elections, because if we were to dissolve Parliament, we have to make sure that we have put in place mechanisms and preparations to administer the next elections. As civil society, we get involved in the election observation. We've got to provide civic education for people to register to vote, and we've got to provide conflict management in cases of heightened political tension, and to be at as many voting stations as possible to ensure that voting runs smoothly. All of that requires resources. So this sounds like an early warning call and perhaps a need for us to mobilize resources.
Yeah. Just in terms of the DA's move, many, I mean, we talk about opposition parties, we're talking about civil society, many saying that this really is a tactical miscalculation and that it's not going to happen. It actually is just a waste of time. Do you think there's an outside chance that it may be successful?
Anything is possible in South Africa, and I think it's a good thing that the DA has put this forward for debate so that there can be consensus, there can be a resolution on the issue. And it is not the first time that there is this call. Even among civil society leaders, you'll remember the religious leaders early in the year called for the dissolution of Parliament. But we spoke to the church leaders to say, do you understand the implications? Because we also have to put in place funding proposals, we have to organize all this machinery, and in the absence of an adequately prepared machinery to observe and administer elections, we may end up in the same situation that we are trying to avoid by early dissolution of Parliament. So in summary, it is a good thing that it is put forward for public debate, and we are also entering the debate in a way that says we need to be cognizant of a number of things. For example, Parliament appointed the Motlanthe high-level panel to look at the effectiveness of legislation. That report is yet to be considered, and it's got a lot of implications when it comes to elections. There is a Morane Commission in KwaZulu-Natal about violence, and we know that in that province, every other week there is a funeral of somebody who has been killed because of political violence. We've seen in the number of by-elections that have taken place since August. All of that is a big concern. The Municipal Demarcation Board is yet to finalize the issues around demarcation, also linked to the Constitutional Court decision to say the voters' roll must have addresses that adequately reflect where people live. So we need to take into account all of that before we finalize the decision about dissolution of Parliament.
Yeah, let's just dig a little bit deeper into that, and let's first. I want to talk about the coalition partners with the DA, and I also want to talk about the funding issues, because obviously implications like this come with major funding implications. There's rumours out there that there's not enough money for something like this to happen. What are your views on this when you talk about the financial implications?
We always, as civil society, have unfunded mandate. For example, in the last elections, we needed about 9 million to be able to do all the work that I've talked about. But we were largely underfunded to do that. And we know now that the nature of violence and conflict is such that it is intra-party related. We've seen a lot of people being killed and harassed when it comes to compiling the lists of election candidates. So it means that that we need as civil society to have more and more presence. And in fact, because Parliament is now looking into the mechanisms to fund political parties, our submission as civil society has been that it need not be limited to funding mechanisms for political parties. It must also extend to civil society, because we also have to maintain our independence. We have to maintain our neutrality and not be accused of being recipients of funding from foreign donors. So all of that needs to be accommodated in the road leading up to the next elections.
Yeah. So let's now talk about the different coalition partners with the DA. I mean, this is in a way seeming as though they're alienating their partners by moving forward with something like this. Not one opposition party as yet has come up and said, yes, great idea, let's support you on this one. And if parties, many of them saying, let's forget about this now and focus on the 2019 elections, as opposed to focusing our attention on something that, if you look at basically the statistics around it, it is statistically never going to be proven. Could this be a detrimental move by the DA?
I don't think so. I think a lot of people start off from opposite views, opposite ends of the spectrum, and by putting matters on the table for discussion, it could well be that partners could find one another as to whether to proceed with dissolving Parliament or not, or also about the timing of such a move. So I think it's just a good thing that this is being negotiated. But again, we also know about the situation at local government level, where we've got coalition political parties. We have concerns that some of the municipalities are struggling to adopt their budgets and their service delivery programs where there are coalitions. So in view of the fact that those coalition municipalities are on shaky ground, it does suggest that even at a national level there may be a bit of a hurdle in terms of finding a consensus around these issues. But we just urge whoever is involved in the process to take into account what it will take to ensure that there's a level political field, there's adequate resourcing, so that we can have a well-oiled machinery to run elections whenever the date may be determined.
Yeah, you know, if we bring a little bit of infighting into it, we saw, I think it was last week, we saw the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF also putting out a tweet aimed entirely at the DA, and I'll quote it. It says, this is from his Twitter account, saying, "You don't need a motion, DA, you can do it alone. If EFF South Africa had more than 51 members, we were going to do it alone. Stop bluffing," he says. Basically saying all of the DA members should just resign and that would dissolve Parliament. But that's not accurate, is it?
Well, there are lots of issues to take into account by different parties. For example, even political parties need a well-funded campaign to be able to do that. They need to put together election manifestos, because we must remember that elections are also driven by manifestos which talks about the mandate upon which the voters will confer their trust on political parties. You don't do that kind of thing overnight. There may be some drafts lying somewhere, and therefore that may be brushed up to do that, but you also need to campaign. So I just think that as the debate unfolds, we will get into the nitty-gritties as to whether this is practical or not. There may be other intervening issues between now, because in politics a day is a long time, which may convince the majority of people who must take decisions that indeed an early election is a way to go. So I think that it is not a misplaced thing to look at.
Yeah. All right, let's look at going forward now and take a look at the 2019 elections that are coming up. Your involvement in all of this, I mean, let's just get a bit of a perspective. What is your role in the upcoming elections?
You'll understand that our civil society forum brings together NGOs, it brings together traditional leaders, it brings together a community-based organization and faith-based organization. And we sit in that platform that we share with the Electoral Commission, because we also an oversight for Electoral Commission. So, as I said, we start by providing civic education for people to go and register, put their names on the registration, on the voters' roll. And you'll understand that the Electoral Commission conducts 2 or more weekends of focused registration, particularly in areas where there the boundaries have been redemarcated. And so we do all of that. And also to monitor the election campaigns, the rallies, and where there is conflict, to try to bring the political parties together and other players, so to ensure that there is no loss of life. Of course, the party-liaising structures where the IEC brings together political parties is one platform where issues of conflict are discussed. And unfortunately, we still see a lot of people losing life, particularly the candidates. Hence, we think that we need to have more presence. And also on election day, we have a presence at voting station to ensure that the process runs smoothly up to after the counting, and to ensure that everyone accepts the outcome of the elections. Yeah. So you need a huge machinery to be able to do that, working around the timetable that the law provides, and we need to be adequately resourced. And hence we are calling upon also other partners and private sector to be able to reach out to civil society to provide the necessary funding and logistics that we would need in preparation for the elections whenever they may be.
Just finally, to wrap it up, the idea of an early election. What needs to be done? What needs to happen for South Africa to go into early elections?
We must just be adequately prepared in terms of the Constitutional Court judgment that says the voters must have their names and addresses reflecting properly. We need to ensure that there is free political activity and a level playing field, so that the tensions and the killings and intimidations stop. Because one of the things we need to ensure that players abide by is the Electoral Code of Conduct, which we as civil society help to administer. So the Electoral Code of Conduct must be there to ensure that there is tolerance, so that we can indeed ensure that elections are free and fair. That goes to the issues of free expression, so that we can hear the diverse views, and so that we can allow everyone to make that political choice out of free will.
All right, we leave it there. Nkosi, thank you very, very much for joining us. Nkosikhulile Nyembezi is the co-chairperson of the Elections National Coordinating Forum, talking to us about some of the implications that come with the dissolution of Parliament, as has been suggested by the DA. All right, we take a